Welcome to our seminar before the sale, and tomorrow will be our 27th annual sale. This evening before program we put on has gotten to be a more popular event each year, and thanks for help making that happen. We want to thank both bull customers and feeder calf suppliers. Those of you who are here for the first time, welcome also. We were just happy to have you all here. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Jerry Wulf, and I'm going to turn this over to Casey and a slate of speakers a little later on. Wulf Cattle is a brand, and the brand is really, as you think about it, is nothing more than a promise of the expectations in the minds of people of what they're going to get. You know, but it's bigger than just selling genetics, selling bulls. Wulf Cattle delivers fed cattle every week. You know, we got our largest customer, Tyson is here. Bob Sure is going to be on the program a little later. We also got American Foods folks who buys a lot of cows and bulls and helps with our retirement program. We couldn't make this all happen without you, the suppliers that supply us with calves. Currently marketing, we're scheduled for 2015 to market about 50,000 fed cattle through our own feed yards. If you convert that to beef, at what limousine cattle yield, and use the average consumption per capita in the U.S. of, I believe it's right at 53 pounds, that supplies the beef for about 570,000 people, over 500,000 people. And for perspective, that's about 70% of the population of South Dakota. So we get South Dakota fed, we'll start on Nebraska or North Dakota. But you're part of that. Again, we couldn't make this happen without you, and that's not just 53 pounds of beef. That's primarily value-added beef for high-end markets, both here in America and abroad. As our good friends Wayne and Jane Hepper say, it's pretty exciting to be raising some of the highest valued beef that's sold in the world, and that's how we feel too. So, welcome. We're excited about the program. You know, it's kind of an age-old topic. It seems like crossbreeding, but crossbreeding and the utilization of limousine genetics, we don't know how we'd have got to where we are today, marketing this many cattle, fed all natural and without implants and NHTC programs, without the inherent efficiency and influence of limousine genetics. So I'd like to introduce someone who joined our program in 2012, and he was no stranger to us then because he had worked for us probably 20 years ago, helped us put sales together. Went up to Canada for about 15 years, come back and joined our operation, has been with us 2012. He now heads up our genetics, oversees all our seed stock selection, and I'm going to turn the program over to him to moderate, Casey Fana.
So I just want to reiterate what Jerry said and welcome everybody here to Wulf Cattle. It's always good to see a lot of friendly faces and past customers, and it's just good to have you all here tonight, especially and again for tomorrow's sale. If anybody's got any questions about the cattle or anything, feel free to run me down, and I'd be glad to try and answer anything for you. I guess as the moderator, I don't have a lot of responsibility unless our question period afterwards gets really tough and the crowd gets out of hand or something like that. But I'm gonna introduce our first speaker, and we'll get the program underway. So first up we have Dr. Matt Spangler, who is with the University of Nebraska. He is a geneticist that we've worked with a lot, compiling feed efficiency data and that type of thing. He's helped crunch some numbers for us and helping us answer some questions that we always are looking for the answers for. With our Grow Safe system in Nebraska at Sandy Ridge, we do more and more feed efficiency testing all the time, and Dr. Spangler has been doing a great job of helping us out and giving us some guidance and insight into what we need to do to be successful with that program. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Spangler.
All right, well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I got out of the car earlier, and it was so chilly I poured coffee down my legs to try to warm up, and apparently that wasn't a wise idea, so you'll have to, my wife would be ashamed right now. So what I was charged with was just giving a little bit of scientific background, and don't worry, it's not going to be too deep or too complex on why crossbreeding is advantageous. So heterosis, or as many of us might know it, hybrid vigor, is the superiority of crossbred animals as compared to the average of the parental breeds that produce them. And the more divergent those parental breeds, the more heterosis we get. So we know that if we cross British breeds with continental breeds, we get more heterosis than if we made crosses within British breeds of cattle. We know if we cross Bos indicus by Bos taurus, we get even more. Another example that, quite frankly, we really didn't think about until a few years ago, and Wulf Cattle Company is one of the ones that made us start thinking about it. What if we cross dairy breeds with traditional beef breeds? Those are extremely divergent, and we actually see quite a bit of heterosis there. Contrary to what you may see in some popular press articles, heterosis is not available from crossing animals within the same breed. Right? It just isn't. We have to cross animals of different breeds. The benefits of heterosis are inversely related to heritability. And what I mean by that is if a trait's lowly heritable, it can be impacted more by heterosis than if it were highly heritable. So we see the largest benefits from heterosis in reproductive traits, and that's a good thing. If we look at economically from a cow-calf perspective, the most economically relevant suite of traits are those related to reproduction. And in fact, the conservative economic estimates say reproduction is at least twice as economically important as either growth or carcass merit. And that's good because those are the things that we can benefit from the most due to heterosis. If we look at end product traits or carcass merit, really not a lot of measurable impacts due to heterosis. But the other benefit of crossbreeding is breed complementarity, okay, blending the strengths of two different breeds, and there we do see an impact on the carcass traits, and you can think of mating traditional breeds that excel in carcass quality with other breeds that excel in terms of lean yield, blending those two together, and that's a benefit in terms of breed complementarity. So if we were to quantify the benefits of crossbreeding, if we just think about the benefits of individual heterosis or the crossbred calf first, we know we see an increase in weight traits, okay? We often think about it as a boost in weaning weight or a boost in post-weaning gain. Admittedly, we see a little extra birth weight as well with that. So it's a little bit important to consider that in a crossbreeding program. However, 2/3 of the economic advantage of crossbreeding is due to this, having a crossbred cow. Okay, absolutely huge economic advantage. And if you look at that bottom line there, cumulative weaning weight over her lifetime, additional 600 pounds, roughly a 25% improvement over her purebred contemporaries. So I don't know what you guys want to price a 600-pound calf at today. That's quite a bit of money that's being left on the table by the commercial cow-calf sector who has not embraced crossbreeding. Absolutely huge. The reason why she does that, she stays in the herd and is productive longer, principally due to improved fertility. All right, so this looks complex, doesn't it? If we think about efficiency from a cow-calf production perspective, the things that generate revenue are cull females, right? And then progeny. The things that inherit or incur cost or feed to the calf and feed to the dam. So if I want to improve efficiency of a cow-calf herd, what's the number one thing I could do that? Have more calves. That sounds facetious, doesn't it? But increase the proportion of females that are successful in terms of reproduction. And again, one of the primary drivers of that is through crossbreeding and heterosis. This is hard to read, and I don't expect you to read it, but it allows me to explain maybe why we see such a large impact of heterosis for fertility traits. The dairy industry actually started this. They looked across the genome of a lot of Holstein cattle, And there were spots in the genome where they noticed animals were big A, little a, and no animal in the population was little a, little a. They called it missing homozygotes. Those things were determined to be related to early embryonic mortality, recessive genetic defects that caused early embryonic mortality. Now, when we crossbreed cattle, we mitigate that, okay? We decrease the potential that those recessive defects pair together, and as a consequence, we see an increase in reproductive rate. That, because of genomics, we've been able to uncover some of the reasons why we see a benefit for reproduction when we implement crossbreeding programs. Retained heterosis, something a lot of you guys should think about. Some of you are going to buy Limflex bulls tomorrow, I'm sure. At least the crew certainly hopes you do. Let's say you buy a Limflex bull, okay, half-blood bull, you go home and you mate him to some half-blood Sim Angus cows. What's the expectation of the amount of heterosis you retain? 75%. So I just take 1 minus the probability that limousine from the bull pairs with limousine in the cow, times the probability that Angus in the bull pairs with Angus in the cow, and so on and so forth. Work that out, I retain about 75% of the heterosis. If I mate those Limflex bulls to purebred Angus cows, I'd retain about 50% of the heterosis. I mentioned breed complementarity earlier, and what I want some of you guys to really think about is the advantages of a terminal breeding system. I know that it's probably counterintuitive to think about not raising your own replacement heifers, or maybe the ranch is large enough where you can have a herd dedicated to raising replacements. But true breed complementarity is mating terminal sires to maternal-based females. It's something that was done in the 1970s, perhaps not by choice, but utilizing animals that were just coming to North America. And I think we have the opportunity to do that again, except for this time we've taken some of those breeds and really improved some of the flaws that existed at one time in terms of calving difficulty and some of those kinds of things. So I think there's a lot of advantage to taking that into account. I want to point out, though, as you guys consider a crossbreeding program, breeds have changed. We all think of breeds the way they existed 30 or 40 years ago, but they're different today. This shows mature weight, and what I want to point out is the red bars are females born in the early 70s, the blue bars are females born in the late 90s, and in the early 70s, the small cows were Hereford and Angus. Fast forward 20 or 30 years, who are the big cows? U.S. mark data says Hereford and Angus. Right? So as you think about breed complementarity, you need to realize the way breeds rank today and not the way they ranked 20 or 30 years ago. So some points to ponder. Mature weight, weaning weight and yearling weight are directly correlated to mature weight. Right? So as we select to increase those things, we could see an increase in the mature weight of our cow herd. If we were to implement a terminal crossbreeding system, I believe that mitigates some of that issue if we're able to source replacement females. Common breeds have all increased for mature weight, and we do have selection tools available to help us moderate that. Heterosis in cow herds, having a crossbred female will increase their culling age. It'll reduce replacement costs and increase the chances for a profitable herd. Why is increasing culling age so important? My guess is, and I don't know your business, but the largest cost you'll face is not the annual cost of running a cow in terms of feed and labor, it's cow depreciation cost. If you really sit down and figure out what that is, it's going to be huge. And so increasing culling age is going to be absolutely critical to mitigate that. The other thing I'll mention is the notion that beef breeds should be all-purpose is common, but it's counterproductive. You need to utilize breed strengths, correctly blend them to take advantage of breed complementarity, and then structure it such that you can take advantage of heterosis. So I want to point out a quote here by Bert Teichert, which some of you may recognize him. You read Beef Magazine, you may see quotes from him. He says here, let your imagination wander. What if a smaller ranch were to buy all its replacement cows from a larger ranch? The smaller ranch would never have to breed or calve a heifer, only cows. It would ensure cow size was small and allow breeding to a terminal sire, emphasizing growth and carcass. All calves would be sold with no replacements retained. Meanwhile, the larger ranch is already breeding and calving heifers, so why not produce a few more, get some economies of size, and then sell cows to the smaller ranch. I'm not advocating that a system like that works for everybody, but I do think it's something that can work for a lot of us, because the fact of the matter is the majority of feeder calves in the U.S. are produced by very small cow-calf enterprises. And as a consequence, implementing a terminal sire breeding program, I think, can be advantageous. So, take-home points: heterosis is real. It has tangible, measurable impacts on the profitability of cow-calf enterprises. There's a pervasive thought that one breed can excel in everything. It can't. And to be bold, argument to the contrary would go against decades of proven science, and in my opinion is akin to trying to argue that the world is indeed flat. So with that, I don't know if we'll take questions at the end or now, but I would point out a couple of educational websites: our UNL beef production website, beef.unl.edu, and a couple of genetic-centric ones, nbcec.org, that's the National Beef Cattle Evaluation Consortium, and then beefefficiency.org as well, a website related to a USDA project focused on developing genetic tools to select for feed efficiency in beef cattle. So with that, again, I appreciate the opportunity and thank you.